Hi there, fellow geographers. This is Rob August, and today we're going to be talking about Denali National Park. The history of Denali National Park really begins with the annexation of the Alaska Territories into the United States of America from the Russian Empire in 1867. One of the most notable landforms in Alaska is Mount Denali. It is the highest peak in North America. And so for many years, it was called by various names, the Russian name for it, as well as the original indigenous name from at least 9 different languages, as well as some Americanized names for the mountain. But in 1897, William McKinley is elected president, and an American prospector named William Dickey called the mountain Mount McKinley to associate the president with such greatness. It was written in a Sun-Times article, and the name really stuck after the president's assassination in 1901. In 1913, the first recorded ascent of the tallest peak in North America, Mount Denali, was made by 4 mountaineers. And in 1917, after a lot of lobbying to create a national park and preserve, Woodrow Wilson names McKinley a national park. However, there was a lot of contention about the naming of the park. Many advocates for the indigenous designation wanted it to be called Denali from the beginning. And in 1980, it was formally reverted to the name Denali for the mountain as well as the national park. Denali National Park is in northwestern North America, in central southern Alaska. The high point of Denali, at the tip of Mount Denali, is located at 63.11 degrees north and 151.19 degrees west. However, the headquarters for the national park is a little bit further east at 63.73 degrees north and 148.92 degrees west. The total area of the park is 6,075,029 acres. That's a lot of square feet. It's 264 billion square feet. So it covers a lot of land, even though it is not the largest national park in North America or even in Alaska. Denali National Park is located in the northern boreal forest region, which is below the tundra of the Arctics and between the more temperate climates of continental United States. There are forests abundantly below elevations of 2,500 feet. But once you get above that, you're going to hit some scrub and spruce in the subalpine zone from 2,500 to 3,500 feet with kind of mixed varying plants, and which are a little bit scarcer. And then above that, we get into the low tundra. You're going to have some mixed plants, but for the most part, it doesn't get a lot of precipitation other than the frozen ice and snow that is already there. In Denali National Park, there are over 1,500 plant species. There is one species of amphibian, that's the wood frog, you'll see over there to the left. There are 39 species of mammals, which include the large mammals like grizzly bears, sheep, caribou, moose, and they're the smaller ones like the squirrels and shrews. There are 169 species of birds found throughout the year in Denali National Park, which include the falcon, jay, hawks, eagles, swans, etc. There are 14 species of fish, and even though they come in and out of Denali National Park, many of the rivers and bodies of water are too cold for them to live in, and they make their treks out to the Pacific Ocean, and many of them live on the outer edges of the national park. But these include salmon, trout, pike, and sculpin. Because cold-blooded animals really can't survive in this area, there are 0 species of reptiles, and that is the reason that there's only 1 species of amphibian. So we have a lot of atmospheric influence from the rest of the world. There is a winter polar wind influence that comes over the Bering Strait from Russia, but a lot of that wind influence is coming from all over the globe to go up toward the poles and reach that polar jet stream. As well, the air quality is often affected by wildfires, which are necessary to the life cycle of the ecosystem, but they do affect the air quality and are becoming more abundant with climate change. Various aspects of climate change include pollutants that are coming through the jet stream as well as through water sources and being deposited that affect the wildlife and are also marking our anthropogenic change. The interior of Alaska, including Denali National Park, has risen 7 degrees Fahrenheit on average throughout the last century. The outer skirts of Alaska have risen about 4 degrees. Some effects from climate change, which include the warming of the atmosphere, also include melting permafrost. As you can see in this diagram to the left, the permafrost it has been melting and is projected to thaw at a great rate over the next 100 years. The permafrost isn't the only thing that's melting, though. Glaciers are also melting. If you look at this diagram to the right, you'll see where the glaciers once were and where it stands now. So they've been melting greatly. However, counterintuitively, there is increased snowfall. This is due to the fact that global rising temperatures create warmer, wetter air that moves toward Alaska, resulting in more precipitation, which can lead to more erosion of land and glaciers during the record warm months. Glaciers are an extremely important part of Denali's 4 spheres. It includes all of them. As the cryosphere, ice and glaciers, it's part of the hydrosphere, and glaciers affect the atmosphere and biosphere. They affect the atmosphere by creating the year-round climate, and they affect the biosphere by creating certain ecosystems. Also, glaciers have affected the lithosphere greatly as well to create the topographic identity of Denali. When a glacier retreats, it may have large land masses within it, and it'll drag those along. It also creates divots in the earth just by erosion from the water as well. About 10,000 years ago, we had our last ice age, and there was a continental ice sheet that you can see over in the diagram to the left. This ice that was conglomerated in the northern part of North America actually revealed a landmass called Beringia between the area we know as Alaska and Russia. And this barren landmass allowed for Homo sapiens, as well as plants and animals, to cross into North America. And as I was talking about before, the large mammals, like the sheep and the bears, a lot of those life forms are found in Russia, as well as in Alaska, and particularly Denali National Park. It mirrors that life because all of it came over as the glacier was retreating from Beringia. Plate tectonics are actually the main reason that Denali National Park exists and Mount Denali exists. Denali Mountain is North America's tallest peak at 20,308 feet. Denali is a composite of native tongue that means the high one, and that's why I said in 1980 it reverted to that indigenous tongue. It is at least 9, if not more, languages that have all come together to somewhat agree on the pronunciation Denali. The fact that the mountain is so high is primarily due to the convergent Pacific and North American plates, which also created the Aleutian Islands and the tremendous volcanic activity around the northern part of the Ring of Fire. Terrains. A terrain is a group of rocks that are related to one another, that are formed together in one area, do not show any relationship to the other rocks around them, and are separated from the rocks around them by faults. Terrains are responsible for much of the seismic activity in and around Denali National Park, as they share transform strike-slip boundaries with surrounding plates along fault lines. The figure to the right shows the delineation between the terrains along the fault. And terrains are a little bit difficult thing to wrap our heads around, I think, for me anyway. Essentially, they are a part of the lithosphere that is created and moves along fault lines and along plate boundaries to another distinctly different area over geologic time. So what we have over here is we have the McKinley Strand of the Denali Fault and the Talkeetna Fault, and in between it we have the Kahiltna Basin, and that basin is a completely different composite of rocks from the other terrains around them. And then we have the Rangelia composite terrain, which again exhibits a completely different formation. And we can measure this through the amount of strata and rocks and their type. And we can also measure it through the magnetism within the rocks. Humans and Denali National Park. So along the national park, there are there's a highway that runs through it, and there's also some small towns and industry along the borders. One of these towns is Talkeetna. It's a beautiful place where tourism meets local life, and one of the best ways, in my opinion, to see Denali National Park is by taking a small plane out of Talkeetna and landing on the longest glacier in Alaska Range, which is Kalhitna. It's 44 miles long. There are also trails and hikes throughout the park and up the mountain, as well as full-fledged mountain climbing to the summit of Denali. I had the opportunity of going to Denali National Park in 2017. Here are some pictures of my father and I on that longest glacier, Kalhitna. We flew one of those planes from Talkeetna up onto the glacier, and it was gorgeous, and I wish I still had the videos I would have shown you. And to address the question if I want to visit there, the answer is yes. I would love to visit there again. It was gorgeous, and I was happy to be able to get to go.